Hey there, thanks for joining me today. This is Laura Lynn with KeepInkingUp.com. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up! In San Antonio, Texas. And today I wanted to share a technique called generational stamping. This is a technique that you can use with just about any stamp set or any ink pad that you own. Today I'm going to be using the middle image of the rose images in the Tool Wild Rose stamp set. This is a photopolymer stamp set that is new in our 2019-2020 annual catalog, and it also has a set of coordinating dies to go with it. I'm going to be using this image right here. I already have it mounted on my clear block. Like I said, you can use any stamp set that you have. The more solid images tend to work a little bit better with this technique, but you can do it with outline images as well. I'm going to be using Calypso Coral ink. You can use any ink that you have. The darker inks, you may get more generations of stamping just because it's a darker color, and the lighter colors will give you fewer generations. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock right here. I will ink up just like I normally do to do any stamping. I'll ink up my stamp and stamp it down. Oh, let me move it up here so you can see. Stamp that down on my paper, just like I normally would. This is called the first generation of stamping. Without re-inking, I am going to stamp again. And that is the second generation of stamping. And I will try for a third and we'll see what we get. That's the third generation of stamping. Now you can see it's getting lighter and lighter. Let's go ahead and try a fourth. That is pretty darn light. I don't think you can really see that very well. So, I think basically you have 3 generations of stamping that you can use. So you might be thinking, well, how would you use that? Well, let me put that aside, and I'm going to pull in a layering piece of cardstock that I can use on a project. So I will ink up my image just like I did before. I'm going to stamp it once. Then I'll move it around on my paper, stamp it twice, and then I'm going to stamp it a third time. And that gets kind of a real dimensional look on your piece of paper. Now, often you'll hear me say you need to stamp off the edge of your paper. And I want to show you, you know what, I'm going to put this aside. I don't want to ruin that. I'm going to caution you against something that can happen when you stamp off the edge of your paper. I've already inked it. I'm going to stamp my first generation off the edge. Now you see some of the ink got on the paper and some got on my scrap paper. But what you'll also see, and it's very easy to see this on the photopolymer, is I have a line of ink on my stamp. So if I were to go and move this and stamp it here, you would see that line on your project, and that's not very attractive, so you don't want to do that. So what you want to do instead, and it's easier with the photopolymer, is let's go ahead and ink this up. I'll stamp it off the edge of my paper. The next time I stamp, I want to make sure that I stay to the side of that line. And again, you can see it really well on a photopolymer. And you can still do the 3 generations of stamping. You just want to make sure that you don't add that line on your project. So let's go ahead and add some more here. And that's the same thing. If you do the generation, you see a line right there. So I can do the third, but I need to make sure I stay within that line. So you just have to be aware of it. Now it's a little bit harder when you're using red rubber, but you just need to be careful and not to get that line because, like I said, that's just not very attractive on your project. So that's kind of what the background looks like. You can kind of see a lot of depth in there because I have got like 3 different colors of ink. So I have a project that I wanted to share with you of what I use. I did that exact same process here on the background. I just created a nice little, I don't know, a kind of hazy kind of a look for a nice background, and that I added a sentiment on top of. And this sentiment also comes from the stamp set. I just love this large blessed sentiment, and this label is in the coordinating set of dies that you can get if you purchase the bundle. These are the dies that come in the bundle, and whenever you purchase a bundle, of course, you save 10% over ordering the items individually. So I always recommend that you get bundles if you like that particular stamp set. So That is one way that you can do generational stamping, but I did want to show you another way. And let's see, I'm going to bring in my paper again here. We're going to have to do a little bit of finagling here. You don't have to use just one stamp. You can use generational stamping with the other images as well. So I'm going to pull out all of my stamps. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start with the outline image. I want that the darkest, so I'm going to have that as the first generation of stamping. And I'll stamp that down on my paper. Okay. Then I'll use that second stamp. Now this I want a little bit lighter, so I'm going to stamp off on my scratch paper the first generation, and then I'll stamp the second generation onto my paper. And it may take me a while to figure out exactly where. Does it go right there? That looks about right. So I'll stamp that down. That's the second generation. See how much lighter that is. Now the third generation is super light, so I'm not sure that it's going to show up, but let's go ahead and do it anyway. So I'm going to ink it up, and this time I'm going to stamp off once and twice. That's the first generation, second generation, so this is now the third generation of stamping. And I've got to find, that looks like that right there. So I'll stamp that down. And yeah, I don't know if you can really see that or not. It looks like basically the two images, but you get the idea that you can use, and with a darker ink color, you may have gotten the three really well, but that's another way of using generational stamping, using different images to create one single image. And here is a card where I used that process. I did the same process with the leaves as I did the flowers. It looks like I did do the three. You can really see the light color. So there's 3 generations of stamping on the flower, and I think that I only could do 2 on the leaves. Anyway, isn't that a pretty card? If you're wondering where that sentiment comes from, it's actually from another new set from the annual catalog, Free as a Bird, this Thanks for Being You. I just wanted a nice little thank you. Both of these cards that I made were thank you cards. Last week we were unfortunate to have our power go out for 50 hours, and I had a couple of friends really step up and help us out, letting us come to their air-conditioned home so we didn't have to suffer too much in the heat of our home. So anyway, that's generational stamping. So I hope you found this video helpful and that you will give generational stamping a try with whatever stamps and ink that you have on hand. Thanks again so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.